Sometimes nights become quieter than they should be. A kind of silence so deep that even your own breathing begins to feel unfamiliar. In moments like that, your mind asks a strange question. If you were forced to keep living, how long would you truly want to live? Most people answer without thinking. A long life, a healthy life, maybe an endless one. But no one asks the second part of that question. What happens if you remain while everyone else leaves? Your mother, your father, your siblings, the people you love. Imagine waking up one morning and noticing that everyone around you looks older. Not by much, just slightly. And you can't quite tell whether something has changed in them or in you. You ignore it at first, but then it happens again. A year later, 5 years later, and slowly, quietly, you begin to realize you are the only one who stays the same. That feeling, the strange, creeping fear of watching the world age while you do not, is something most people experience only in nightmares. But according to one of Japan's oldest and most unsettling folk legends, a woman lived through exactly that for 800 years. Not as a gift. As a curse she never asked for. If I loved countless people over 20,000 years and watched them slip through my hands, what would that feel like? How long could I endure it? What happens when you grow tired of every emotion, every taste, every drink the world can offer? In small seaside villages, people do not measure time the way cities do. Not by clocks, but by the rhythm of the waves. Calmness shapes their lives. Nets are pulled in at dawn, and stories are told at dusk. And when certain stories are shared, no one makes eye contact, because the possibility that the story might be true unsettles everyone listening. Centuries ago, in one such village, there lived a fisherman. An ordinary man with no grand dreams. He simply sailed out, returned home, and fed his family. The only thing that set him apart was the night he was caught in a storm. The sky darkened without warning, and waves tossed his boat like a toy. When morning came, he found himself on a shore he did not recognize. People were waiting for him there. Quiet, polite, yet strangely expressionless. They offered him food. The table was filled with things he had never seen before. Shells, oddly scented soups, and at the center, a pale piece of meat with an unrecognizable shape. For reasons he could not explain, he felt uneasy about eating it. Still, not wanting to offend anyone, he secretly took a small piece and slipped it into his pocket. Sometimes life changes not because of a decision, but because of forgetfulness. When he returned home, he completely forgot about the meat. Days passed, nets were repaired, fish were cleaned, and life returned to normal, until his young daughter began searching through his old clothes. Children are curious, not to understand the world, but simply because curiosity calls them. When the girl found the dried piece hidden in the pocket, she had no idea what it was. She smelled it, took a bite, and nothing happened. At least not that day. Years passed. The girl grew into a young woman. She married and moved into another home. Life seemed ordinary, but people in the village began noticing small things. First, whispers spread. Then the way people looked at her began to change. She was not aging. At first, no one paid much attention. Some people simply look young, they said. But years passed. Her friends developed wrinkles, hair turned gray, shoulders bent with time. Yet her face remained unchanged, the same bright skin, the same lively eyes. Her husband grew old, he fell ill, and one day, he died. She stood at the funeral, looking like a young bride. People do not encounter death for the first time through their own ending, but through the loss of others. Living through that loss again and again slowly erodes the soul. The woman remarried, then again. Each time, the same ending. Those beside her faded into time while she remained unchanged. At first, she believed it was a blessing. Then she realized it might be a curse. Because human life gains meaning not from its length, but from its limits. Days matter because they are numbered. Eternity may appear peaceful from the outside, but for the one living it becomes a journey without direction. Years turned into decades. Decades into centuries. Everyone she knew died. Cities she remembered transformed. Paths she walked as a child disappeared. Even the language people spoke slowly changed. One day, she looked into a mirror and realized she was the only person alive who still remembered her own past. That was the day she decided to cut her hair. People who wish to leave the world often choose silence. She went to a temple and became a nun, taking a new name and leaving her old life behind. But time still refused to leave her. She began traveling across the country. Wherever she went, she helped with small tasks. She assisted in repairing broken bridges, planted trees in temple gardens, spoke with the poor. People said her presence brought peace. She never hurried. She had no limited lifetime urging her forward. But no one knew she could not sleep at night. Every new friendship carried the same fear, knowing she would one day be alone again. Each bond added another farewell, waiting somewhere in the future. She had already lived through hundreds of them. As years passed, stories about her spread. The young nun who never aged, the woman forgotten by death. Some called her sacred, others called her cursed. Everyone wondered how such a thing could be possible. She knew the answer. A piece of meat once eaten by accident. Something that came from the sea. Legends often describe mermaids as beautiful, but in older stories they are not symbols of beauty. They are warnings. Crossing the boundary between humanity and nature always carries consequences. Eating their flesh meant interfering with the natural order, and nature always collects its debt. As the nun lived on, she watched the world change. Wars began and ended. New beliefs emerged. Old temples crumbled into ruins. Cities once full of life fell silent. Yet the exhaustion inside her never changed. Living long means carrying the weight of memories. Perhaps the human mind was never meant to hold more than a few decades. Beyond that, memories begin to pile endlessly. Faces, names, voices. None of them fading completely. Eventually, the past feels more real than the present. One day, she realized she was tired of walking. She settled in a cave near the sea. Visitors became fewer. People chased new miracles. Slowly, the world forgot her. Perhaps that was what she wanted. Because sometimes being forgotten is a form of peace. According to legend, she stopped eating there. Days passed, then weeks. Not because she wanted to die, but because she wished to finally reach a natural end. It is said she pointed to a tree outside the cave and whispered, "When this tree withers, I will leave as well." No one knows whether it truly happened. Some say she died. Others claim she still lives. Legends rarely accept definite endings. Uncertainty keeps them alive. But the most frightening part of the story lies elsewhere. Human beings still dream of immortality. Medicines, technologies, experiments. Every era repeats the same desire under different names. Death unsettles us. Yet perhaps what we should fear is not death itself, but its absence. Imagine remaining while everyone else goes. Every goodbye becoming the last goodbye. Being afraid to love new people because you already know their stories will end before yours. Maybe the legend is not about mermaids at all. Maybe it is about human desire. The desire for eternity. And the price hidden inside every desire. When the night grows quiet and the distant sound of waves fills the air, a realization slowly appears. What makes life valuable is not its length, but its ending. An ending gives meaning. A story that never ends is not truly a story. It is only an endless loneliness continuing forward. And perhaps that is why some legends are not wishes, but warnings.